All right, how hard could this be? We're going to take this rear end completely out and put that rear end over on the bench there, back up in here. So I've done this on just the frame without a body on top of it, but today we're going to do it with the body on top. So can't be much different than replacing the springs. We've done that video a few times. So we'll take the shocks off. We'll take the lower control arm off. We'll take the upper control arm off up here. But before we do that, we've got to disconnect the brake line up here. And we've also got to disconnect the emergency brake line here. And we've already got the drive shaft removed, so we don't have to do that. And then we got to figure out how to take this down. I obviously up on the lift right now, and I can loosen the bolts and get ready to do it, but I'm not going to let it drop all the way down to the floor. So we'll figure something out there. All right, here we go. Okay, why it's up on the lift here, what I did was I went ahead and disconnected the brake lines on each side. And as you can see, it's already disconnected from the rear end because the cover's off. And hey, how you like that loop? Whew, what was somebody thinking there? And I've disconnected the shocks, okay? And then I've got all the bolts loose that I said I was going to take off. I took the nuts off up on these, so they're just being held in slightly now. So now I'm going to take the car and I'm going to lower it, and we're going to put the tires right on these dollies so I can roll it around. So hopefully we get enough pressure off of the bolts that they will slide right out. Okay, here we go. If you don't see this, if you see this as my last video, I probably killed myself under the jack. All right, now we got the car down on the ground, and I used my little electric impact to back out the bolts, which works quite nicely. Once the threads kind of get engaged, it'll back out very nicely. If you try to do it by hand, it's going to be kind of tough. And don't forget to support the center punk in the front of it, because everything's going to want to tilt forward because of the weight of the rear end and how it's balanced. So now we're going to go over the jack or the lift and lift this up. All right, there you go. The rear end is sitting on the ground, and hey, don't forget, if you forget to take your springs out, they'll just go rolling where they want to go. They came right out. But easy peasy. I see we got some brake fluid finally leaking, and we'll get a new line on there and take care of that. I just thought it'd be easier to get to with the rear end out. So hey, we'll keep going. Guys and gals, we've taken these bushings out of the freezer, and we are going to drive them right into the location here on the rear end. Okay, so we've already cleaned this out. We're going to spray a little lubricant on there. Okay, my engineering students, why do we freeze this? So it contracts, it gets smaller. Now I could put some heat on here to make this actually bigger, but I don't think we'll need that. We're gonna put this in here, and we're gonna tap it kind of slightly just to get it started. Okay, and notice I've got my BFHs. You know what BFH stands for. Hey, this is a snap-on one from Rick Hurling. God bless you. Rest in peace. This is one I got to swap me. We can try both. They're about the same height, but you don't have to have fancy tools to do this. I'm going to take a 4x4, a block of wood, and we're going to drive this in. So, boom. How do I know when to stop? There's a ledge. Woo! Come on, get on the end of that hammer, Mark, and pound that thing in there. Okay, here we are on Sunday. Got a little interrupted yesterday. Had to run out to Aurora, Ohio and pick up some supplies, some hand-me-downs for baby Mac from the cousins out in Aurora. So we got that all situated. Got Patty a little present too, so that's pretty cool. I'll show you more on that later. But here we are, the new rear end. Got some tires on there to make it easy to roll around. And then I went ahead and set it up on a roller on the pumpkin so that wouldn't tip down. Remember, it's all balanced so it'll tip down right now. Kind of loosey-goosey. And we've got the suspension hanging up here. And we will drop the lift down on top of this and see how that goes. Okay, wish me luck. All right, there you go. Got the rear end up in its place right now. I put a couple tires on, and I used, while the car was down on the ground, I used my dollies to kind of jockey it around. And I got 3 bolts in place, and this one right here didn't want to line up until I used the transmission jack to get the rear end up a little bit more and in its true location. So I've got to go over to the old rear end and steal some parts so I can mount the shocks, and I got to let this rear end back down a little bit so I can put the springs back in. But then we'll be all set as far as locating this rear end in place. Well, this is the first time I had to do this on rear springs. I actually had to compress them so they would fit up into the pocket. So, something different. All right, there you go. The rear end is under the car, and job complete. I'll tell you what, they put some really, really stiff springs in this rear end. I don't know, I've never had to compress rear springs to fit them in, and this thing's setting awful high. I had to do all sorts of things to get those springs in place, like compress the springs, and I had to use a transmission jack to kind of get the rear end cattywampus or at a severe angle just to get the shocks on. So, hey, it's all done. We're back to a roller, and we'll take the rear end cover off and see if the rear end is actually a 410 gear like it's stamped, and make sure we're in good shape there. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we've got to get new brakes on the rear end here. There are no brakes on this rear end. So what I did is I went ahead and ordered something from Inline Tube. Inline Tube is one of my favorite vendors. And the brakes are all fully assembled on a back plate. So that should be interesting. We'll have to pull the rear axles out to get that back plate that's fully stuffed with new brakes on. But hey, that shouldn't be too big of a deal. And I'm looking to do more rear end projects this winter. I might change the ratio on the rear end of the Aquaman. So we'll see what happens. Now we got to turn our attention to this big block sitting over here in the corner, not in the corner, next to the 72 Chevelle, and see what we can do about getting this motor under the hood of this Chevelle.